It's been a breathtaking fall from grace for the governor, but he could have much bigger problems than just sleeping on the couch for a while. There is the possibility of prosecution for a number of crimes, serious felonies, including mail fraud and money laundering, and the federal offense of violating the Mann Act. That's the M-A-N-N Act, by transporting a prostitute across state lines. With us now and more of this is our senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano, and we were just speaking before this program began about how he was selectively prosecuting, in your estimation, some, yet not other, prostitution entities.
Right. Well, we learned this morning, and again, this is from unnamed FBI sources, but they leaked it to all the New York press, that he may have spent as much as $80,000 on prostitutes, and he may have been doing this for the past 10 years. Now, before a year and a half ago, and for the previous 8 years, he was the Attorney General of the state of New York, the chief law enforcement officer in the state. During that time period, he successfully prosecuted 2 organized rings of prostitution, while he was apparently using, for his own purposes, the services of another ring of prostitutes. So how did he decide who to prosecute and who to utilize and protect? That would be a serious crime called malfeasance in office, protecting a criminal activity, an act you know is criminal, while prosecuting the same activity when committed by somebody else.
There was widely held speculation that the reason for the delay in this resignation, which so many believed would come almost immediately, was so that he could get a deal with prosecutors which would not allow him to. But what do we know?
You know, and I was part of that speculation, because it only makes sense that to a prosecutor, the idea of getting the bad guy off the scene without the expense and time of a trial, by getting him to resign, that's a great victory. So I suggest that either that victory has occurred, that is, either there is a deal that involves his resignation, and we just don't know it yet, the government has chosen to announce it, or he felt such pressure to resign that he foolishly threw away the only card that he has, the only thing he can give the prosecutors to satisfy them, which is resignation, because now he's already done so.
I suppose there's always the possibility that the reason that this was held up is because there's one side of, well, the Republicans who are in charge of things could have been stringing this along, waiting for the, you say we may impeach you, and then you're sort of stuck. There's nothing much you can do. What sort of prosecution could he face in the absence of a deal?
Okay, so let's put aside prosecution for patronizing a prostitute. Usually the Johns don't get prosecuted. Even if he was in Miami or Houston, which is what the allegations are this morning. The serious federal problems he has is wire fraud, wiring money to a criminal enterprise, mail fraud, mailing cash to a criminal enterprise, laundering money, disguising money that he knows is enriching a criminal enterprise. If you add those up together, he could be charged under the Racketeer Influenced Corrupt Organizations Act, which is basically helping to make wealthy a criminal enterprise. That's 20 years in jail.
A RICO charge would be huge.
Standing alone. Each wire fraud and each mail fraud is 5 years. Then, as you said, the Mann Act. Now, normally, the person who patronizes the prostitute is not prosecuted under the Mann Act. That was written to prevent slavery, to prevent people who organize this. But for a public figure in law enforcement who's sworn to uphold the law and who at other times in his life prosecuted this, they may very well go after him for that too.
Judge Andrew Napolitano, I guess we'll know soon enough. Thank you, sir.
We will. You're welcome, Chef.